Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We will now begin the second day of the 20th anniversary celebration of the Convention for the Safeguarding of ICH. My name is Yoo Soo Min. I will be your MC for today as well. Thank you very much for coming here despite your busy schedule. As you know, the digital environment has changed the way we work, the way we live, as well as the relationships that we have with the people around us. In fact, the digital environment is playing a very important role in our lives, which is why we have to also think about the role of ICH within this digital environment. Today, we would like to have session 4 hosted by Ms. Janet Blake, Associate Professor of the University of Shahid Beheshti. And for our panelists, we have Cristina Mescoa Chavez, Professor of the University of Mexico, Livier Boss, CIO of the Mesh Minds Foundation, Chong Hui Park, and Kiran Bhatia of FemLab will be joining us online. We might have some issues with the connection. I'd like to ask you to please understand. We also have Mr. Michael Onyango, founder of the Forgotten Bottom Millions. We'd like now to turn to our moderator.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear panelists, and dear colleagues and fellow members of the Living Heritage family. Good morning and welcome. Allow me first to introduce myself. My name is Janet Blake, and I'm the director of the Persian Garden Institute for Living Heritage, and I'm the moderator of this session today. I'm very pleased to welcome you to the thematic session on living heritage and the digital environment at the Seoul Global Meeting for the 20th anniversary celebration of the UNESCO Convention for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage. Welcome also to all participants who are following online from all over the world. And thanks, of course, this is thanks to the digital technology that makes this possible. Today, we're gathered here to explore the fascinating intersection between living heritage and the ever-evolving realm of the digital environment, where the analog and virtual worlds meet. Yesterday, our fellow panelists have already provided us with impressive and visionary insights into three important thematic areas of safeguarding living heritage: livelihoods, the natural world, and education, and how to make them more relevant for people and society. Unleashing the power of living heritage for sustainable development and peace is indeed the main theme of this global meeting. And today we're going to explore how safeguarding living heritage and the digital environment intersect, and we will try to predict how this interaction may develop in the future. In a world increasingly driven by technological advancements, it is essential that we consider the impact of the digital environment on intangible cultural heritage and identify both the opportunities and the challenges that arise when these two realms converge. In an age of globalization and interconnectedness, the digital environment has become an invaluable platform for the safeguarding and the transmission of intangible cultural heritage. From music and dance to storytelling, culinary traditions, and traditional ecological knowledge, digital tools and platforms now offer new avenues for safeguarding and sharing community-based safeguarding practices across the globe. However, with the rise of digital technologies, we also have many questions. What does going digital mean for living heritage safeguarding? How do living heritage community members navigate the digital environment? How can the potentials of the digital environment be leveraged to strengthen transmission and safeguarding, as well as to connect living heritage communities across the globe? So, Questions about the impact of the digital environment on intangible cultural heritage also touch upon issues of digital democracy and how the active participation of communities can be ensured. The digital age has ushered in a new era of connectivity and accessibility that offers unprecedented opportunities for communities to engage in the practice and the transmission of their intangible cultural heritage. Digital platforms have opened up and democratized the process of cultural expression, allowing individuals and communities to share their own traditions, stories, and practices to a global audience. Through social media and online platforms and communities, people can document, showcase, and collaborate over the safeguarding of their intangible cultural heritage, transcending cultural and geographical boundaries. The digital environment also contains the potential to allow Bera communities to participate actively in decision-making processes regarding their own cultural heritage. Through online forums, crowdsourcing initiatives, and participatory platforms, it is now possible for community members to contribute their expertise, opinions, and experiences, ensuring that their voices are heard. Digital technology can empower living heritage communities to shape the narrative surrounding their intangible cultural heritage and actively engage in the digital world. However, it is essential to recognize and address the challenges that are inherent in this. Not all communities or members within those communities have equal access to digital tools and resources, leading to potential disparities in participation. Additionally, the digital space may present risks such as misappropriation, misrepresentation, and the commodification of these cultural expressions. And ensuring ethical practices in the digital realm becomes a crucial consideration when discussing this topic. At a more fundamental level, we may have to ask ourselves how we identify and safeguard the living heritage that only exists in the online environment in the future. So, we will now explore these multifaceted aspects with our distinguished panelists, both here in the room with us and also online, who represent a diverse range of expertise, experiences, and perspectives. And let me mention that I think that fact is extremely important in our discussion today. They come from various disciplines, including from intangible cultural heritage safeguarding, ICT and artificial intelligence, and digital anthropology. They will, no doubt, provide insights into how digital platforms can be harnessed to empower communities, to amplify marginalized voices, to foster inclusivity, and further promote the central role of communities and their members in the safeguarding and transmission of intangible cultural heritage. So, today's roundtable will include one question for each of our 5 panelists who are joining us here today, as well as ample time, we hope, for them to respond to questions from the audience. So I will be introducing our distinguished 5 panelists as we go along. But before we begin, I believe that we have a short video from a youth participant to help stimulate our discussions.
Yes, before the panel discussion, as you've just heard, we will listen and watch a video message from the youth.
Good morning. 안녕하세요. My name is Yeji Lee, majoring in Intangible Cultural Heritage Studies at the Korean National University of Cultural Heritage in Korea. I entered this school because I am interested in Korean culture in general, but the more I encountered intangible heritage, the more I fell into the infinite potential values and possibilities of expansion of intangible heritage around the world. I made a university club called Zoom with classmates and am still working on it. The word Zoom means breath in Korean, and it derives from the slogan, Breathe for Forgotten Tradition. We are aiming to promote the community solidarity through intangible heritage by organizing and implementing utilization and regeneration projects to safeguard intangible heritage as a hidden treasure. The session title is Living Heritage in a Digital Environment. The preface of 2003 convention recognizes that intangible cultural heritage as a mainspring of cultural diversity and a guarantee of sustainable development. At the same time, it is a driving force keeping communities to move on and inherited common spiritual assets. Here, I am curious about what the result will be if AI like ChatGPT learned intangible heritage. We should discuss whether quality knowledge is learned and recorded, recreated in the hands of AI and ultimately contributes to safeguarding, or whether it will cause social confusion due to misuse or abuse of knowledge. I'd like to hear various opinions from experts who gathered here today to not only celebrate the 20th anniversary of the 2003 convention, but also prepare for the next 20 years. Thank you.
Well, it's great, I think, to hear from a young person from Korea who studies intangible cultural heritage and is concerned about this question of digital technologies and what they will mean in the future. And without doubt, we need to hear from many young people about the topic of this panel. They are the future, and they understand in ways that perhaps the older generations find challenging what all this means. And she is right to mention the importance of living heritage as a community resource and the importance of respecting cultural diversity and the need to safeguard the future viability of this heritage. She mentions a future, or is it already here with us today, in which artificial intelligence tools can learn and even recreate intangible heritage elements. This not only raises the question as to whether this is safeguarding or possibly misappropriation of the heritage, but even more fundamental questions about how we will define this heritage in the future. So, with that, I would now like to turn to our 5 distinguished panelists and ask them for their perspectives on the topic of this panel. So, allow me to begin with our first speaker, who is joining us online, Ms. Cristina Amezcua Chavez. So, Cristina, you are a social anthropologist and a member of the faculty of the National University of Mexico as a professor and a researcher. In 2019, you coordinated for UNESCO the International Survey and Report on Alternate, Lighter Ways of Sharing Intangible Cultural Heritage, Safeguarding Experiences. You are the chairholder of the UNESCO Chair on Intangible Heritage and Cultural Diversity, and you also chair the IUAES Commission for Research on Intangible Cultural Heritage and have been a member of the organizing and academic committees for the International Congress on Experiences in the Safeguarding of ICH. So, Cristina, could you please share with us your insights on how the digital environment can be leveraged to strengthen transmission and safeguarding, as well as to connect living heritage communities across the globe? So what do you see as the major opportunities and challenges in this? And how can this contribute towards encouraging mutual respect and social cohesiveness. Sorry. So over to you, Christina.
Thank you so much, Janet. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Properly?
Thank you. Perfectly.
Great. I'm so glad. I'm so sorry not to be able to be there with you in presence today. After the challenging years of the pandemic, I really, really was hoping to be able to meet in person, but well,
Yeah,
the thing
indeed.
is, I'm here online, and this is one of the things I wanted to point out, how technology and digital environment allows us to be together, even if we are not able to be in person. So first of all, I want to point or to stress the advantages of this digital environment in terms of being able to share and foster the transmission of intangible cultural heritage. It was very clear during the pandemic how having these digital options was very important for many communities to be able to keep on performing and sharing what was dearest to them. I've been researching with my research team at the National University in Mexico on how the pandemic affected the transmission of intangible cultural heritage. And it has been very clear how digital tools available to the communities made it possible for some of them to continue or not to interrupt transmitting or performing what was important to them. Also, another very, very important issue that we have noted is how these digital technologies have, in a certain way, I don't know how to say it. They made possible an intergenerational dialogue between elders and young people. Elders wanted to keep their traditions alive, to not stop doing what was important for them. So they had to talk to their sons and grandsons and daughters and granddaughters in order for them to help them use this technology.
We seem to have lost the feed with Christina. I give it a minute or two to see whether we get her back again. But while we're waiting, I just want to comment that I believe already she has certainly shown us that the digital technologies can be a very powerful force for providing opportunities to the communities of intangible cultural heritage in circumstances such as the COVID-19 pandemic, but I think in many other circumstances too, where perhaps for them communication, direct communication may be problematic. And we should, I think, remember that there are many positives that these technologies offer us, as much as we're concerned with some of the unknowns as to what might happen as a result of that. Do we know if the feed is returning? Should I move to the next panelist or wait? This, of course, is some of the downsides of the digital technologies too. We have to recognize that we were speaking about this before the panel, that they're wonderful when they work, but then when they don't work, we're left without much possibility to go forward. So could I have some guidance? Should I just continue with the next panelist? Yes, thank you. So I'm sorry that we've lost Cristina in Mexico. Have we found her again? Christina's back. Ah, please continue.
I'm here. Sorry,
Yeah.
there was a power outage here.
Yeah,
It's
there was.
heavily
Oh,
raining.
okay. Well,
But
please.
I hope we keep the connection.
I hope so too. Please continue, Christina.
Sorry. Okay. Well, I don't know where we were lost, but I was saying that it was very important to see how intergenerational communication was in a way fostered by the pandemic in terms of helping the elders understand how to navigate the digital environment in order to keep traditions or practices alive. So that is one of the key points I think it is raised here, that intergenerational dialogue is crucial in order to understand how we can build bridges between what the elders and the young people know and want to transmit, and how they want to transmit it. That's something we have learned. That is something that we learned because of the pandemic. On the other hand, I also think it is a great and big challenge to work with the inequalities in terms of access. It is very easy to think on how the digital environment can help us to broadcast and share intangible cultural heritage. But we need to keep in mind that not everyone is connected, and that not everyone has the knowledge on how to use these digital tools to be able to either share or see what we are broadcasting online. So that is one of I see that is one of the biggest challenges, dealing with inequalities in terms of access. Not everyone is connected around the world. Not every woman, man, elders are able to really use the digital environment to be able to be part of these digital communities. Other thing, and this was very the video from the youth on this session made me think is about artificial intelligence. We have bigger challenges there that we need to be able to address pretty quickly. So I think that there we have to really foster and be able to dialogue and connect with the younger generations that are understanding better how this artificial intelligence is working. Because for my generation, it is still something quite difficult to understand and navigate. But what I see is that I am not really, well, I was first introduced to for example, to the ChatGPT by my son, who is 11 years old. And he was the one who first shared with me the link and told me, hey, Mom, did you see this? So I'm not scared, because I do think that human beings and our creativity, which is basically what intangible cultural heritage is about. It is about our collective creativity. That is what makes us human. That is what makes us feel part of a community. That is what creates social cohesion. So I do think that we need to understand the potentialities of artificial intelligence for better use and better and in a way, liberate us from daily, oh, sorry, I just forgot the word, from daily chores,
Yes.
in order to be able to be more creative and to be able to be more together. So basically, my message for this meeting is let's embrace what technology gives us. As the coordinator of the MOOC on intangible cultural heritage and sustainable development, which we had to make, which we had to make real in pandemic times with digital, in the digital environment. I know that our creativity and our ways of working together was what made that possible. So basically, my message is let's embrace what technology gives us as ways of keeping us together. Finally, intangible cultural heritage. The basic function of intangible cultural heritage is to create social cohesion. So now we have other tools to make us be together in a more amplified form, because technology gives us that potentiality. So let's use that in our benefit. Let's use technology to build social cohesion and to build ways of being together and understanding ways of other people of being together. I think that basically that's what I want to say.
Thank you very much indeed, Christina. I think you've raised some extremely important points, and I'm very grateful for your optimistic take and your call for us to embrace these technologies and figure out ways to work with them for a positive outcome, but reminding us also that we need to be very aware of the values that we want to foster here. You mentioned creativity, humanity, for example, and to ask ourselves how then we can offer that access to as many people as possible. And I love also your mention of the discourse, the intergenerational discourse, which takes the idea of the intergenerational transmission into another sphere. And so now, moving to our second speaker, who is, I promise you, here in person. He's not a hologram. Mr. Oliver Bos, who you are a creative technology leader. You take ideas from concept to reality, and you play a key role in the business strategy team at Mesh Minds. You are passionate about exploring the intersection of technology and art, and you use your knowledge of tech trends to make a positive impact on the world through educational projects and programs. You are dedicated to fostering an uplifting environment by creating meaningful relationships with the people around you, connecting artists, creative technologists, and multinational organizations to deliver two impactful projects, which I believe you're going to tell us something about. And you are willing to bring the metaverse to the masses, and while making it a fun and a safe space for everyone. So, Oliver, I understand that you and your colleagues have conducted some groundbreaking projects combining culture and creative digital technology, bringing together artists and IT expertise for the sustainable development of people and the planet. So, could you please share with us today some examples to explain how, in your experience, the digital technologies support the engagement of communities and groups in the transmission and safeguarding of their living heritage? How do you see the relationship evolving in the future. So over to you, Olivia.
Amazing, super. Hey, thank you so much, Janet. And also thank you to all of you to be invited to this amazing meeting and conference. It's been my first time in Seoul, and it has been lovely so far. It was for a long time already on my traveling list, but sadly, COVID-19 last year made it quite hard for us to travel. So originally, I am based in Singapore, originally from Amsterdam. And yeah, as Janet mentioned, Chief Inspiration Officer at Mesh Minds. So yeah, we do have these funky titles, and if I haven't inspired you today, just let me know. At least you guys have already inspired me a lot for the last couple of days. So yeah, I am a tech and arts enthusiast, and really truly believe that digital technology has the power to enable positive change if used correctly and responsibly. So just a bit of background what Mesh Minds does in a nutshell, and then I'll show you a video later on of one of the projects that Janet mentioned just now. So the Mesh Minds Foundation is a not-for-profit arts organization, and what we focus on is educating, enabling, and empowering artist creators in Asia to really focus on the sustainable development of people and planet in the digital age. Right, so the work of the foundation is also supported by the creative technology consultancy service from Mesh Minds. Right, and to give you a bit of a glimpse and visual understanding of what we do, I would like to show you a video of that project that Janet mentioned about our cultural significance actually happening in Korea. It was a collaboration with Meta last year. And it's called Art Reimagined Korea, which is a collaborative project with traditional Korean artists whose work is brought to life to wider audiences and through immersive augmented reality and virtual reality technology. We worked remotely with amazing people on the ground here in Seoul, and they made it all come to life. So if we can get the video up, that would be great. Yeah, get the behind the scenes look of the amazing digital work.
한국 전통과 문화 가운데서도 예술은 특히 다양한 관점에서 세상을 바라보고 이해하는 방법을 제시해 왔습니다.
아트 리이매진은 한국의 전통 예술가와 함께한 협업 프로젝트입니다. 증강현실과 가상현실 기술을 통해 새롭게 표현된 각 예술가의 민화, 국악, 전통 무형 작품을 더 많은 관객분들이 경험하실 수 있습니다.
우리 춤은 자연을 표현하는데요. 사군자 그림의 전통에서 4가지 식물이 상징하는 덕목과 계절에 해당하는 사막으로 구성된 춤을 창작했습니다. 전통춤 하면 사람들이 보통 어렵고 모르는 세계라는 느낌을 받는데 이 기술들을 통해서 춤은 이렇게 표현될 수 있구나 하는 가능성을 보아주면 좋겠어요.
민화는 일단 평면적인 구성이 많이 차지하는 분야이기 때문에 2차원적인 민화가 3차원적으로 바뀌는 게 제일 기대가 많이 되었어요. 가족의 행복을 많이 주제를 해서 작업을 하고 있고요. 오래된 그림이나 옛날 것이라는 생각이 있는데 AR 기술과 만나서 충분히 현대적으로도 해석을 할 수 있구나라는 걸 느끼셨으면 좋겠어요.
저희의 음악에 국악기들이 많이 사용이 되거든요. 그래서 우리 악기가 이렇게 화면에서 보이는 모습을 보고 굉장히 시대가 많이 바뀌고 있구나라는 걸 느끼게 됐던 것 같습니다.
저희 음악에 맞춰서 그 영상 작업들을 무대에서 시연하는 작업들을 했었는데요. 이번과 같이 AR과 같은 어떤 조금 더 진보된 그런 기술과 만날 수 있었던 그런 작업이라는 게 저희도 무척 기대가 됩니다.
개발자와 예술가의 협업을 통해 한국의 전통과 미래를 다채롭게 표현한 이번 아트 리이매진 AR, VR의 세계로 여러분을 초대합니다.
Thank you. An amazing shout out to the artists and the creative technologists that have worked on this project, because the works by the 3 participating artists offer insights into different ways of passing and interpreting tradition. Instead of treating the past as complete, you see how inheritance can be relevant and present with these traditional artworks using digital technology. So ranging from Park Yoon-joo's Minhwa painting to Gong Myung's Gugak-inspired music and Park Chung-ho's choreographed dance, each of these works seeks to communicate not only the values of Korea's tradition, but also relates to contemporary world we experience and the future we all imagine. So through AR technology, this project offers various entry points to engage with these diverse forms of traditional Korean art. And in doing so, it invites a new generation of people to learn about their hidden meanings and significance. And this also brings me what Mr. Ito was saying yesterday, and that was that the youth didn't see the importance of ICH, and how he mentioned that through social media, we can get to them. And I really, really resonate with this. Why not teach the youth about living and intangible heritage through platforms that they hang out and care about and get accustomed with? And they also talk about with each other on these platforms, from Roblox till Fortnite, which I will highlight in a minute. So it's time that we adapt these type of technologies. And as mentioned by Christina, we embrace new technology. Since we're already adopting each time new technological advancements take place, because I bet some of you might have been Googling what augmented reality is already, from learning from books till learning from the internet. So we always here to adapt as human beings. So I'll give you another example that really inspired me and thinking about how technology can be used to safeguard cultural heritage in this digital realm. So there's a company called Preloaded. It's a game company, and they are specifically known to create really immersive metaverse experiences, but also creating a Fortnite map. So some of you might know Fortnite, which is this game that kids play and basically shoot each other. But what Preloaded did is making a map within Fortnite, and without killing each other, what they do is you learn about the Great Pyramids of Giza in a very cool and immersive way. And I think this is the future, and it's really innovative to think about, that you use the technologies that the youths are using to learn about these topics, like the history of the pyramids of Giza. So we at Mesh Minds are doing something similar, and we're using Roblox, this wildly popular game amongst young children and the youth. And we're creating this world, or this fictional world based on Singapore. It's called Sky Farm Island, and we're teaching kids about vertical farming and making agri-tech cool again. And by doing that, we also hint to the hawker culture we have in Singapore. So yeah, I see this evolve greatly in the future as well, and I really try to encourage to embrace technology. And I do understand it's sometimes really hard to understand and follow all these trends here and there, but we have to take it with a light touch. As we already saw, it's not really on our side always, but it's the way how we interact with it when things go wrong. And how you, Janet, did that was lovely and very calm. And that's the way to go forward with it. If it doesn't work, well, I still have my notebook over here. I know I'm holding an iPad, but just in case it's not working, I have my notebook. So, yeah, and in the race, in this race for AI, I do think what the youth were saying as well, it's in the hands of AI, but more in the hands of ourselves. It really depends on what input we give to the machine learning algorithms. It's not so much what they will come up with, that's based on the algorithm. So there was this other law firm who's creating their own proprietary software for their law firm to make work faster, basically, and also more accurate. And therefore, I see for Living Heritage and ICH as well, to really focus on its own proprietary software, maybe, with its own large language model that focuses on harnessing the digital technology for digital heritage, living heritage. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Oliver, for sharing those, I think, very profound insights and your wonderful video. And
Thank you.
particularly, it's to me, it's a very striking point that you did that amazing work with Korea, but this is your first time in Seoul.
Yeah, correct. It was indeed a challenge, but yet we did it.
Again, shows the possibilities that the digital technologies provide for not just producing that work, but producing it at a distance, with global interconnectedness. I want to just mention briefly, there was one phrase in your video that struck me, which was the idea of the contemporary value of this heritage. I think that's very important. And also, you speak, I think this is really very fundamental, you speak about the quality of the output is the quality of the input in such models. And this also speaks to the question as to who is creating that input. And I think this, obviously for us, we're not capable perhaps of changing this, but I think we do have to, as a society, consider the question of inclusivity also in the people working in your field. Older people, more women, etc. That will have an effect on what is created too, yeah? So you've raised, some pretty profound questions for us, and we're at the point, rather like when the printing press was invented and everybody was terrified as to the results. But, like Christina, I think we have, and you're also giving us the message, we need to adapt ourselves and learn how to live with this in a positive way. So again, thank you very much, Oliver.
Thank you.
It was very stimulating. And we now move to our next panelist, who is also joining us online, Ms. Jonghui Park, who, as I say, is joining us online. Thanks again to the wonder of digital technology. So you are the head of innovation and education at the United Nations University Institute for Advanced Study of Sustainability, UNU-IAS. You promote the innovative and inclusive use of technology to provide lifelong learning opportunities to engage everyone in sustainable development. Your team implements research and capacity building projects in various sustainability areas, including climate change displacement, net zero transition strategies, community-based education and sustainable development, and using technology to safeguard cultural heritage from the perspective of the SDGs. And before joining the UNU, Ms. Park, you were a team leader of ICT and education at the UNESCO Asia-Pacific Regional Bureau for Education and also the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning from 2011 to 2020. So, Jonghui, I understand that you have carried out extensive work to promote the innovative and inclusive use of information and communication technology to provide lifelong learning opportunities for sustainable development. So, could you please share some of your ideas and experiences from your work in lifelong learning on how new technology could be harnessed to promote ICH safeguarding? For example, how can different age groups and peoples of different backgrounds be connected to each other? So, over to you, Jonghui.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me clearly?
Very clearly indeed, thank you.
Thank you. So good morning, everyone. 안녕하세요. My name is Jonghui Park from United Nations University, and I'm really, really grateful for inviting me to this very exciting and meaningful event in Seoul, my home country, Korea. So before I answer to the questions posed by the chair, I have to confess to everyone that I'm not an expert in ICH. Probably just like the previous speaker, I'm more like a tech person and education person. And the cases that I'm presenting to you may not be like totally respectful for tradition of ICH, but I think using technology, we need to kind of have some shift of mind of making it more accessible to the public and also attractive to the younger generation, also other generations of who are involved in intangible cultural heritage. So in 2015, when I first saw the list of 17 SDGs, it wasn't strange to me that the culture was not explicitly mentioned in the SDGs because I was not part of ICH discourse. And it wasn't until the UNESCO Bangkok culture team asked me to look into the issue of disappearing intangible cultural heritage and asked me to join a mission to find technological solutions to safeguard this intangible cultural heritage. And it was then that I realized how serious the issue is, especially how closely ICH is related to people's lives and their sustainable future. So during my time in UNESCO and UN University, I had the privilege to work with ICH experts to use technology to empower different generations, including artisans, women, and young people, and motivate them to safeguard their ICH in their community. During the projects in Chiang Mai and Luang Prabang in Laos, I found 4 rather common challenges in safeguarding ICH, which may be addressed by using technology. So the first challenge was that there was actually limited ICH information accessible to general public. So the awareness is quite low. Second, for the ICH bearers and practitioners, it was difficult for them to find young people or next generations who are interested and motivated to take over this tradition. And third, why do these young people less care about ICH? Because there was a disconnect between economic well-being or income generation activities in the ICH. And finally, and the fourth, despite all these challenges, interventions and educational programs for the community as a whole was rather limited. So I would like to introduce 2 projects that I have carried out in terms of using technology to safeguard intangible cultural heritage in these 2 communities in Thailand and Chiang Mai and Luang Prabang in Laos. So in the project with the crafting women from Karen, Akha, and Hmong communities in Chiang Mai, we teamed up with Samsung, the electricity company in Korea. And volunteers from this company helped the women to find digital solutions to those challenges that I just mentioned about safeguarding the ICH. So, for example, some women in the community found it difficult to document and visualize the traditional patterns. So what we did was we teamed up with engineers in the company Samsung, and some women, the crafting women, visualized the traditional patterns, and the engineers to document and digitize those traditional patterns. And they also, the women also learned how to set up a social media market for their craft. And the marketing team from the company created an app to easily make professional-looking product labels or text. The women also learned how to take an attractive photo of their craft using very easy photo box. And in the end, the group created their final products like a website for visualize and document the traditional Hmong patterns. And also they created a mobile app, of course, with the engineers from Samsung to create a product label. So inspired by the success of this project from Thailand, my team at UN University carried out a quite similar project for this time youth in Luang Prabang, also in partnership with the UNESCO Bangkok. So in this project, actually all we did was to train youth on ICH knowledge and connect them with the local artisans and teach them digital skills like digital storytelling, movie making, those things. And then we just let them figure out and find their local ICH to safeguard and build a digital solution. And the result was just amazing. One group, for example, worked with a weaver, the basket weaver, Uncle Kami, his name, who faces the same challenge as ICH practitioner. He found that it is quite hard to keep the ICH transmitted to the next generation because they show little interest in traditional craft, and the young people prefer more convenient jobs in urban areas. So the young people groups, the youth group, after listening to Uncle Kami's challenges like this, they decided to create a woven lamp with a contemporary design, just like what the previous speaker said. So it's a traditional woven lamp with a contemporary design. And it wasn't just designed in a vacuum, but they really closely consult with Uncle Kami because they don't want to ruin or damage the traditional practices and like how to weave this basket. So at every step, they respect traditional practices. Moreover, what amazes us was they went a step further to add solar panel to power up the lamp. This lamp doesn't require any electricity. So it's like really sustainable development, climate resilient, and all those aspects. So the most important part of this youth experience is that the youth learned a lot from consulting and discussing with this Uncle Kami, to the extent where they want to be the part of the ICH safeguarding even after the forum, even after the project. So from these two projects, I found common success factors. First, we try to make the ICH domain relevant to the target learners as much as possible. And second, we engaged the local community and artisans from the very beginning and listening to their needs and reflect them in the design of the project. And third, we brought in interdisciplinary experts like marketing, IT expert, engineers, education specialists like myself, etc. So the result was not only this innovative culture, modernized culture products, but also the active participation of this young generation, new generations coming up with the solutions, digital solutions to improve the community's intangible cultural heritage. But I also would like to share some remaining challenges, probably some food for thoughts for all the participants or experts here today on ICH. So first, there was a concern that traditional ICH or products of ICH are seriously altercated or even damaged due to global trends or consumers' tastes or their demands. At the same time, we know that we have to make it attractive enough for next generation to keep them as their own culture. So it would be a dilemma that ICH experts like participants today here will probably have a better idea how to deal with this. Second, just like any project, it was a real challenge how to sustain and scale up the effect of the project after the project team left the community. We are still trying to make it more sustainable and try to scale up by putting these lessons to the teacher training of the community, so the teachers in the community actually do include this in the curriculum. Third and last, how to mainstream culture in the SDG 2030 agenda, just like the Seoul vision that we are going to talk about in the next session, and how we can actually make culture as the center of sustainable development agenda is still a challenge. I found, even we are already halfway through the 2030, the target year. So with that, thank you very much for your attention, and I would like to welcome any questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Jonghui, and certainly those two examples you shared with us have shown us really some of the possibilities here, again, of not just embracing the technologies, but importantly, providing access to these technologies in ways that allow community members to make use of them. I'm a firm believer that if one gives that possibility, that opportunity to the bearer communities, they will find often ways to use these and to show us how they can be used in positive ways for themselves and the ICH. So I think this is a case that everybody needs to learn from each other, and coming back to the crucial idea of finding ways of having the dialogue, not just between the generations, but also between the different sectors and people with different expertise. And even how can we find the common language to do this? So that was very inspiring for our future discussions, hopefully. And so now, again, thanks to the wonders of digital technologies, we have another guest speaker joining us online, Ms. Kiran Bhatia. So, Kiran, you are a digital anthropologist. You focus on the intersection of marginalization and digital media. Your research examines the impact of digital media technologies on vulnerable communities in globally South countries, particularly on young people from low-income backgrounds. You aim to shed light on their experiences to promote diverse, equitable, and inclusive digital structures and policies. So with over 8 years of fieldwork experience in India and Sudan, you actively advocate for media literacy and pro-democracy efforts worldwide. Currently, as a research lead at FemLab and the program director for AI Kashif, you manage projects exploring user behaviors, design cultures, educational technologies, and digital activism. So, Kiran, as a digital anthropologist and the research lead at Feminist Futures of Work Initiative, FemLab, you work to support inclusive technologies and cultures and explore how the evolving digital environments influence the expressions of cultures online. So, can you share with us some insights that you have gained from this work to help us to understand better the linkages between living heritage and digital technology and how they might impact on each other in the future? So, what benefits, for example, can each offer the other? And what are the potential pitfalls that we should be aware of? So, over to you, Kiran.
Another problem with digital technologies and remote work is you're surrounded by your pets and they want to share the same space. Thank you so much for having me with you all today. It's such a pleasure to be here. I think I would begin by reiterating what most of the panelists have discussed. Digital technologies permeate all aspects of our lives, including the living heritage. They influence how we engage with, how we perform our cultural identities online. And a major part of our performances, our expressions and articulations are online these days. I'm a research lead at FemLab. It is a feminist futures of work initiative. And we work with different stakeholders to ensure that we support inclusive technologies and cultures. We explore how the evolving digital environments influence the expression of cultures and identities online. Our research primarily focuses on identifying ways to optimize digital technologies, where users can communicate, they can archive and express their cultural identities and living heritage. I would like to emphasize that digital technologies allow people to use different forms of online storytelling, different forms of narrative experiences. It allows them to document remote and underrepresented cultures and to build cross-cultural empathy, which is really crucial in today's time. Let me share a snippet of one of our main projects with young people from resource-constrained and marginalized cultural communities in the global south. We have worked with aspiring content creators and digital artists representing their local cultures, such as dietary practices for sustainable living, sustainable fashion, and conscious consumption. Now, these young creators, content creators, they use digital media to archive the wealth of generational knowledge of what constitutes sustainable living in their cultures through conscious consumption at a personal and at a societal level. They are actively creating archives to document these local systems of knowledge. And in doing so, they are popularizing the living heritage that they inhabit, they possess. Simultaneously, they complement this intergenerational local knowledge with suggestions on transforming this information into everyday practices suited to the economic and political realities in different contexts. So they might have developed these dietary practices in some region in India, but they're communicating this local system of knowledge to people in other parts of the global south, for instance, in Korea, in US, in Africa, in contexts of Africa. So young people have to constantly modify their engagement with an interpretation of these local cultures to ensure that their local and generational knowledge systems align with the forms of communication that are possible on digital platforms through social media. Let's take an example of a campaign called #MigrateStory that was launched by United Nations Human Rights in 2022 on Instagram. And within this campaign, migrants in different countries were requested to share a food recipe to commemorate the story of their migration. This campaign used digital media to encourage proponents of different cultures migrating to new lands to archive their food recipes as a testimony to their rich heritage, to their generational knowledge and local systems. As several migrants used #MigrateStory and shared their favorite food recipes, people on social media from across the world tried these recipes in their own homes. They modified these recipes, changed them, altering bits and pieces to suit their own lifestyle and dietary practices. Now, many such examples help us understand that when content creators archive knowledge of local food systems for sustainable living, they also provide information on translating this knowledge into everyday practices in different contexts in geographic regions. Before the advent of digital media, I would say that it was easy to express, it wasn't easy to express because the spread of information about local knowledge was limited to people inhabiting a similar geographical region. In pre-digital media age, individuals from small and local cultural communities could not access those geographically removed from them, say in other cities, states, or countries. As a result, members of a cultural community could assume that others, only those with the same geographical region, would have the resources to perform and reinforce the cultural practices they were promoting. Now, digital media has allowed cultures and knowledge systems to overcome their absolute rootedness in physically bound and geographically conducive practices. As a result, it becomes relevant for proponents of various local knowledge systems to preempt how their local cultures would manifest in different contexts. And in doing that, they should and they do offer practice repositories to allow for the popularization and preservation of their local systems of knowledge. We are thus witnessing that systems of knowledge are now readily preserved due to the ease of archiving, communicating, and networking across geographical boundaries and in different markets. At the same time, content creators have to spend considerable time refining how these local cultures and knowledges are performed, such that the attendant rituals or everyday practices are flexible to the evolving dynamics of different regions, different countries and states in which people live. So it's important for us to look at the relationship between living heritage and digital environments as very nuanced and complex. Digital media and technologies can also give birth to competing aspirations and possibilities. They can increase a sense of alienation and fear in content creators who are promoting their local cultures. For example, when content creators use digital networks to replicate their local connections in the online space and reinforce their cultural practices, they also witness social alienation and isolation. This is primarily because they are relying on digital media to a large extent to practice their cultural systems of knowledge. And they experience isolation when they cannot dwell in the same physical spaces as their local community members. So this loss of a sense of belonging is intangible, and it stems from young people's increasing reliance on digital technologies and online spaces. For example, the practice of generational co-sharing, be it co-sharing a space, identities, rituals, knowledge, or aspirations for that matter, it embeds the essence of living heritage. Digital environments can complicate this understanding by offering new experiences and possibilities for preserving and communicating the living heritage. Digital environments also to a large extent intersect with the logic of commercialization, the logic of profit making, and can lead to misappropriation of cultural knowledge and related artifacts. For example, in one of our projects with yoga practitioners trained in Hindu meditation programs, many respondents explained how digital media enabled practitioners to isolate the performance of yoga and the underlying philosophy guiding this meditative practice. They argued that YouTube tutorials or DIY, do-it-yourself videos on how to do yoga in digital environments or online spaces appropriated increase their flexibility. According to these respondents, yoga was an art form that required the presence of mind and body in a meditative state, enabled through the guidance of a guru or a mentor in a shared physical space. Also, yoga for them was a lifestyle and not just an isolated exercise regime. One of the yogis we had a conversation with said, I quote, "Yoga is not how flexible you are or how many calories you burn. It is how you live every moment, every single day. To begin with, being a yogi means never consuming meat-based meals. And yet digital media has turned yoga into a fad." So similar observations are critical to appreciating the dynamism that's inherent to digital technologies and how they influence the process of archiving, communicating, and preserving local knowledge. A significant question to consider is, how can our living heritage become inclusive and still retain the essence of the local cultures in digital environments? Based on our work at FemLab, there are 3 ways that we suggest to optimize the potential of digital environments to safeguard living heritage. The first and the most important step is to equip users with technical and critical media literacy skills. Capacity building at the grassroots level is extremely crucial if we are to foster local communities to retain authority over their knowledge systems and cultural identities. The second step would be designing accessible technologies and online platforms to ensure that local cultures and vulnerable communities have access to information and communication technologies. The third step is to acknowledge that digital technologies are designed to promote and to reinforce a neoliberal logic, which is profit-making, commercialization of arts, or to emphasize on the power of big companies. So our tech policies and our state-led efforts should adopt a people-centered approach in designing and deploying new media tools to align the preservation of living heritage with the needs, aspirations, or capabilities and realities of local communities in these local spaces who have the authority over these local systems of knowledge and practices. And finally, it's really important to use the local as the starting reference point and the practical foundation to build programs and initiatives to preserve or archive, communicate, or practice living heritage in digital environments. So I think these are my 2 cents on how we can create an inclusive, productive relationship between living heritage and digital environments.
Well, thank you much. Thank you very much indeed, Kiran. Yes, thank you. I mean, I refer back, in fact, to the comment made by Zhonghui at the beginning of her intervention when she apologized for not being an ICH expert. But in fact, this is exactly why all of you are here today, because we need to hear from all of you and to learn from all of you. And I think we have done so from each intervention up till now of those of you coming from other backgrounds and disciplines. And so, I mean, I'm very taken by your last point about starting from the local. This really speaks to us in this the context of the 2003 convention. And also, however, at the same time, there's a certain paradox that as we start from the local, but at the same time, we're operating on this transnational level. And the question that you raise as to how we reconcile those two facts. And I think that it's slightly amusing that those of us in the convention framework, particularly from a legal background, have always felt that we're very advanced because we can have shared multinational inscriptions on the international list. But in fact, you've raised a much more extensive and challenging form of, transnationalism that the convention is going to be addressing going into the future. And just the final point I take from your intervention, Kiran, is also how we understand intangible cultural heritage as something that each generation needs to adapt to respond to their needs. And I think that's also a point that came through strongly through what you were telling us. So again, thank you for that. And now I would like to turn to Mr. Michael Onyango, who has come today. Well, no, not today, but he's come all the way from Kenya to be with us today. And so, Michael, you are a respected thought leader and a speaker on frontier technologies and their impact. You have held key roles at the Africa Union's Africa Centre for Disease Control and Kenya's County Government of Kisumu. And you've spearheaded groundbreaking initiatives to leverage technology for local development. So, as the founder of Forgotten Bottomillions, you created Kenya's largest social media platform for sharing verified opportunities. And through your compelling thought leadership and your captivating speaking engagements, and we will in a minute experience that, you inspire audiences to embrace the potential of frontier technologies and leverage them for impactful change. So Michael, I understand that through your foundation, you've actually founded Kenya's largest and most trusted WhatsApp network platform, which reaches more than 500,000 people every week. And so the intersection of intangible cultural heritage and social media, it presents obviously an interesting means of sharing and celebrating the living heritage practices and expressions. And so can you share with us your story of how social media has helped to foster dialogue and mutual understanding through sharing and exchanging intangible cultural heritage across different communities? Michael.
Janet, thank you very much. And first of all, I think it's proper that I say thank you to UNESCO, INCHAP, and the Korean government for ensuring that we also have a seat on this table. And before I go into the specifics that Janet has asked me, I think it's important to recognize that each one of us in this room, your DNA comes from the cradle of mankind, which is in Africa, which is in Kenya. So that's a commonality that each and every single one of you in this room have. So not having me here would have not fulfilled the objectives of what you have been doing. So thank you for that. And again, just to put a bit more context into why it's important that I should possibly be sitting here in the room. A lot of you may not know or may not have the understanding that if you take the whole continent of China, if you take the whole continent of USA, if you take the whole continent of Europe and India, all that fits into Africa. So there is no way we can have a conversation about living heritage, a global conversation, without having Africa within this space. I'm really grateful and I'm really happy that I'm here to take care of that. So coming into, what, not me, but what we do, because Forgotten Watermillions is more than just me. It's a collective of probably about just a shy of about 500 or so people who ensure that every single week across Kenya, we reach about 800,000 people over the WhatsApp platform. And just some background, before I talk about WhatsApp, let me speak a little bit about technology and Kenya so you can understand just why and how this fits in. So I am sure that everybody in this room, and if you haven't, please Google the word M-Pesa. So M-Pesa is mobile money, which just caught traction in the rest of the world, possibly maybe about 10 years or so ago. But for us in Kenya, possibly for the last 20 years or so, we've actually been using this. And to give you some context, the total transactions today that the whole of Western Union will do across the world in all its operations, these transactions that we're going to do as Kenyans over M-Pesa in one day exceeds what Western Union does in a month. So that gives you some context. When people normally think or talk about the continent of Africa and technology, they think that the two don't sit together. So I just want to bring in that context into the room. 95% of Kenyans actually are connected on WhatsApp. So again, that is why primarily we as a Forgotten Watermillions work over the WhatsApp medium. But why do we use WhatsApp and why is it important? And I need you to understand this, and I think I want to make this very, very clear. Each and every geographical country or region has its different nuances and its different technologies. So I'm not pushing and telling you that WhatsApp is what you should be using in your specific geography. In some instances, for example, in Singapore, maybe Instagram works better and it's more engaging. But why does WhatsApp work so well for us? And why is it important in this discussion of living heritage? First of all, WhatsApp, a lot of the global corporations, and I won't mention them by name, but they have gone ahead and they give free access over their platforms on WhatsApp. So a lot of Kenyans can actually get connected over their devices into WhatsApp for free, which is good and bad, because then a lot of Kenyans who don't have access to other parts of the internet believe that those corporations are the internet. So that's also the downside of it. But it's important that what has happened with us having access to WhatsApp is a lot of people who ordinarily would have never had access to information, access to socio-economic opportunities would have been fledgling. So we have people right now who are living across and studying across the world, for example, who simply got information through our platform. But I want to be a bit more contextual, and I want to dive into living heritage and give some examples of what it is that we have done, continue to do, and also planning to do. I love how we finally got it when I heard all the panelists speaking, when everybody narrowed it down to food. Food is one common thing when you're speaking about living heritage that really encompasses culture and encompasses who or what we are. So it's interesting that within our WhatsApp channels, every single Friday, we have our market day, where that's the only day within our partner organizations that we allow people to sell or to engage with the service and products. And one of the highest things that people are actually selling or offering is actually food. And interesting enough, the food that they're offering is actually traditional food, which ordinarily you cannot find in your supermarket, you cannot find in the big stores. So it is interesting that now communities which were looked at as rural communities have connected so greatly with those in the city. So it is so exciting when you see younger people, or even people across different cultures, are getting to learn about other foods and about other different utensils and about other different rituals because of what they're now able to access over the WhatsApp platforms. So this just is a testament as to what and how technology is so important in terms of driving, preserving, and letting people live their cultures. So contrary to popular belief, people always thought that when technology came across, or when technology came about, this would actually change communities and change societies, and they would drop and forget who they were. But we're seeing quite the opposite with this. So for example, I've just discovered, so I come from the shores of Lake Victoria. And Lake Victoria is the second largest freshwater water body in the world. And so there's a whole lot of new species of fish that I didn't know about that I've now discovered and I keep learning about. So these are just some of the interesting things that we're finding out. But interesting also, our scientists are now working on what we're calling our orphaned crops. Orphaned crops are the crops which were our traditional crops, but because of different multinationals and different interests, other crops came and superseded them. But our local scientists, not just in Kenya, but also across Africa, are actually working on orphaned crops, which, interestingly enough, are more resilient to climate change because they're adaptive to the local systems. And I can give you a very great example. So in Nigeria, they've actually worked on the cowpea, which is extremely critical and is an extremely important staple food for the whole of Nigeria. And they've been able to take care of the weevil, which was a big problem within the cowpea. So what we're now doing as Forgotten Bottom Millions is that we've actually partnered with a science communication agency called Alliance for Science. And what we're doing is helping Alliance for Science, who basically work with scientists and on different scientific technologies to dumb down the science and to also have it brought into local languages, and we're able to transmit that across the different WhatsApp platforms. So you're finding that, again, interestingly, when we thought that scientists who work in labs and on the things that they work on was so removed from reality, through digital technology of WhatsApp, we're actually able to show the connection between some of the orphan crops that they work on, which are now ensuring that the living heritage, which we're speaking about here, can actually continue to get a life in terms of what it is that we are doing as a people. I'm very excited about this particular session because it shows that UNESCO and the other partners, the statement that you have made to the world is that our past and your past is extremely important, but it's not going to dictate our future. So I think I've seen that there is, yes, sorry, I've been cut short for time, so I will not be able to finish everything I'd like to say. But just in a nutshell, I would like to remind us all here that within the space of our digital technologies and what we have done over using and over work with local communities is we have brought in new markets, we have brought in new economic opportunities, but beyond that, we have brought in the stories and which can now be archived and which can now be used for prosperity and to ensure that the communities which were then looked upon as people who needed a handout, really don't need a handout, what they need is a hand up, and the technology is providing this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Michael. And because our time in this session is short, I won't take up any more of it by making any further comments. We apparently have, well, probably less than 3 minutes now left in our session, but let me at least try to take one, if not two questions. But please, because our time is short, if you have a question, can you ask a short question to give our panelists more chance to respond? So yes, a question over here. Can we have a microphone, please? Thank you. Yes.
Hello, my name is Dylan, and I'm an independent scholar focusing on transnational street dance in Australian Korea. My question is to Mr. Olivier Boss. I was quite inspired by your Art Reimagine Korea VR project. So my question is as follows. Given the panel's topic on linking ICH or living heritage to digital environments, who was your target audience for the project? And how did you assess the impact of your Art Reimagine Korea project on increasing engagement with living heritage, with living tradition with this audience? Which benchmarks did you use?
Well, that's a great question, Dylan. Thank you. I'll try to do my best to answer it as accurate as possible. So first of all, the measurements, right? How do we measure this kind of impact? And this is one thing that we always struggle with, to be frank. With all the other campaigns that we have in augmented reality campaigns and targeting behavioral change, for example, is extremely difficult. So the impact of it itself, it's first of all offering the platform for artists out there, traditional artists, and getting accustomed to these new technologies. So that's the first point of call, and then later on worry about the masses, to be frank. And the target audience, right? It's for everyone who is interested in these art forms and also want to learn more about these digital technologies using AR and VR. There's not a specific way how to get interest by a specific group, to be fair. It's for everyone, and if you want to learn more, then it's there to use. You can still go to the Instagram page, for example, which is called Art Reimagined KR, and we also did several other iterations in Singapore and in Taiwan of it. But yeah, I know it's a bit of not a direct answer to your question, but I hope I answered it here and there. Yeah? Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And what I would like to do now, because I believe really we are coming to the end of our time, I would like to ask the panelists one by one, and if you can follow the order that you spoke before. Just, you've heard everybody, each other. Could each of you just, like in one sentence, provide a kind of key takeaway that you have from this session? So if you would like to start, Christina, and then we follow the order of interventions.
Sorry, I just lost my my audio.
Okay.
Okay, well,
Did you hear me?
yes. I
Yeah,
can.
okay. Please carry on.
Okay, in just one sentence, I think that my takeaway message would be, let's work with the digital environment to find ways of better transmitting and better safeguarding ICH. There are important ways that when digital technology can help us do that.
Okay, thank you very much. And Oliver?
Right, I'll keep it short indeed. Really the key takeaway is to embrace technology, but also take care of its nuances and understand that it's not for everyone at all times and not accessible for everyone. Yeah. So we need to take it slow and with a calm approach and understanding what we're dealing with, basically. So thank you.
Thank you. And Jonghui?
Yes, thank you. So my key takeaway is the technology can actually make it happen, the intergenerational learning between the artisans and the young generation, not just because the young generation can use technology, but also artisans can learn from the young generation how to use technology, how to utilize technology to safeguard intangible cultural heritage. So it's two-directional, it's interdirectional, intergenerational learning that can be empowered by the use of technology. Thank you.
And Kiran?
My key takeaway is that it's important to design a people or a community-centered and inclusive approach in the design and deployment of new media and digital technologies to ensure that our work of preserving living heritage aligns with basic principles of human dignity, creativity, and pleasure.
Lovely, thank you. And Michael, last but not least.
Thank you. So I'll use an analogy. Not to use technology is akin to trying to rearrange furniture on the Titanic.
Mm-hmm. Well, my thanks to all of our distinguished panelists. I think really we have many very important, profound thoughts and a lot to take away ourselves from this panel and think about. Particularly, I would say, the question of how us older generation who are sitting in the committee meetings of the convention, etc., how we can learn from younger people about this very important question. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, panelists, for your wonderful discussion.
Thank you very much. We had some connectivity issues. We apologize for that and ask you for your understanding. In this session, we discussed the living heritage in a digital environment, mutual respect, opportunities and challenges, the impact that digital environment has on living heritage as a whole. We've also seen a lot of visual elements in today's session as well, how digital environments can be used to enable more safeguarding of ICH, but that we also have to be well understanding of the risks that it poses. That we had a very lively discussion. We'll have a short break, and then we will announce the Seoul vision based on the discussions that we have. We'll see you soon. So now we will announce the Seoul vision for the future of safeguarding living heritage for sustainable development and peace. And for that, we would like to invite Ms. Park Sang-mi, Ambassador, Permanent Delegate of the Republic of Korea to UNESCO, and Mr. Ernesto Otone, Assistant DG for Culture at UNESCO. Please give them a big round of applause. I believe we are still waiting for the Assistant Director General. Yes, he is entering the venue. Once again, please welcome Ms. Park Sang-mi, Ambassador of the Permanent Delegates of the ROK to UNESCO, and Mr. Ernesto Otone, Assistant DG for Culture at UNESCO. Please give them a big round of applause. We'll watch a short video.
So.
So, dear participants, following 2 days of enriching discussions, gathering more than 20 distinguished panelists, we have reflected on the future direction of the convention. These insights have helped us to frame what is called the Seoul vision for the future of safeguarding living heritage for sustainable development and peace, which, together with Her Excellency Ms. Sang-mi Park, Ambassador Permanent Delegate of the Republic of Korea to UNESCO, I now have the pleasure to announce in this session. Allow me to begin. Now is the time to unleash the power of living heritage for ensuring sustainable development and peace, for enhancing solidarity and inclusion, for preserving biodiversity and oceans, and for responding to health, social, and economic crises. Now is the time to recognize culture as a global public good, as underlined in the Mondial Declaration adopted by 150 states at the UNESCO World Conference on Culture Policy and Sustainable Development, and with it acknowledge the importance of living heritage cutting across every dimension of sustainability. Now is time for culture, including living heritage, to be recognized not only as a fundamental right, but also as a key pillar of sustainability on its own.
We recall that intangible cultural heritage is created and recreated by communities who practice and transmit it, and is inseparable from their social, cultural, and economic lives. Over the next 20 years, we must bring to the forefront the voices of the community members for them to convey and share contextually relevant solutions and strengthen their active participation at national and international levels. This will help ensure that sustainable development agendas truly harness the power of living heritage to achieve our common goals. We recognize that the intersection between living heritage and economic development is complex and multifaceted, and that economic activity can have both positive and negative effects on living heritage safeguarding, as well as the livelihoods of practitioners and communities. The knowledge, skills, and practices which local and indigenous communities have maintained, transmitted, and enhanced over generations has the potential to provide livelihood for many people and can generate revenue and decent work, including for people of different ages and genders and indigenous peoples.
We reaffirm the central role that living heritage can play in tackling the pressing global environmental changes facing our lives and the planet, in not only providing time-tested solutions, but in shaping and reaffirming our relationship to the natural world. Living heritage expression foster value of respect, custodianship, and reciprocally towards nature and promote awareness and understanding of the diverse value systems and concepts that local communities have in relation to the natural world. We recognize that living heritage is a powerful resource we can harness to address the document global learning crisis, where education system struggles to meet the expectations and needs of the next generation. Living heritage can make a significant contribution to improving the quality and relevance of education, fostering appreciation for cultural diversity, and contributing to education for peace, global citizenship, and sustainable development.
We acknowledge the groundbreaking impact of digital technologies on people's lives and their intangible heritage, both posing new threats and providing new opportunities for its continued transmission to future generations. We underline that in this regard, addressing rights and ethics issues in the changing digital space is important. We also believe that as hate speech and expressions of racism and xenophobia circulate rapidly on the internet, the power of living heritage to foster respect for diversity and celebrate differences can be and should be harnessed as a countering force, connecting rather than dividing people around the globe. We are convinced that intangible cultural heritage safeguarding needs to engage all stakeholders and policy areas within and beyond the culture sector. This involves state authorities, local governments, civil society organizations, international organizations, and the private sector. Joint action and tailored responses can considerably enhance the present and the future of living heritage safeguarding and ensure that it is leveraged for improving people's lives.
In the next 20 years, we envision that we renew the efforts and joint action from all stakeholders. The role of intangible cultural heritage as a driver of sustainable development will be firmly established and fully integrated into national development plans, policies, and programs at all levels, recognizing at the same time the interdependence between the safeguarding of intangible cultural heritage and sustainable development, peace, and human security. These outlines our collaborative vision for the future of this convention. From the dynamic and productive discussion these past 2 days, we have reflected on the key areas of action and how the safeguarding of intangible cultural heritage can be leveraged to contribute to some of the most pressing and urgent issues of today and those of tomorrow. With this, let us now move to the closing of our meeting. Thank you so much.
This is a historic moment for the safeguarding of ICH. This is the 20th anniversary celebration of the Convention for the Safeguarding of ICH, and it is almost time for us to close. In yesterday's session 1, we talked about sustainable livelihoods and living heritage. In session 2, talked about nature, and in session 3, quality education. Finally, in today's morning session, in session session 4, we talked about digital environment, and particularly the impact of digital environments on living heritage. We discussed many different areas from different points of view, and we've brought many speakers and panelists from different walks of life to have very significant discussions. We'll now move on to the closing ceremony. We'll hear the closing remarks. First of all, we would like to invite Mr. Kim Ji-sung, Director General of ICHCAP, one of our co-hosts, to please come up and provide us with his closing remarks. Please give him a big round of applause. Anniversary of the convention with us here in Seoul. And I would also like to express my gratitude to someone who is here, Ambassador Park Sang-mi of Korea to UNESCO, and thank you very much for your support. As we are about to conclude the event, I'm standing here before you with heartfelt gratitude. I'm very pleased that Korea has hosted this meaningful celebration of the 20th anniversary of the convention, and that the event that we organized as a large on-site gathering after the pandemic has been a big success. Through this conference, we explored interconnections and intersections between intangible cultural heritage and sustainable livelihoods, quality education, the natural world, and the digital environment. At the sessions, we renewed our attention to the role of living heritage and discussed ways to promote sustainable development using ICH. The culmination of our discussions is the announcement of the Seoul Vision. The Seoul Vision reaffirms our commitment to the safeguarding, promotion, and transmission of intangible cultural heritage that we have continued for the past 20 years, and highlighted the importance of sustainable action, inclusive education, harmonious relationship with the nature, and responsible use of digital technologies for the protection and utilization of living heritage. We also need to support leadership of the next generation for the transmission of living heritage and encourage the participation of various stakeholders in the digital space for the protection of creative heritage, and continue in-depth research on the potential and the role of ICH to contribute to peace and sustainable development of communities. As the Seoul Vision has been created based on all the comments and views that we collected from the participants, we must recognize and uphold this vision statement as containing key principles and guides for our actions regarding ICH safeguarding going forward. We reaffirmed our commitment to stronger cooperation across nations, regions, and sectors. We expect that the Seoul Vision will serve as a roadmap for governments, organizations, local communities, and individuals to work together to safeguard intangible heritage and transmit living heritage of today and tomorrow. Ensuring implementation of the convention in the Asia-Pacific region and promoting the sharing of ICH information and networking among the member states have been the key objectives of ICHCAP, and we will continue to work with the member states to continue these endeavors. I'd like to express my gratitude to Assistant DG Otone of UNESCO and Ambassador Park Sang-mi for their support in successfully drafting the Seoul Vision. I would also like to thank all the participants, including moderators and the panelists. Finally, this event would not have been possible without full-fledged support from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Cultural Heritage Administration, who have co-hosted the conference. I'd like to thank the Foreign Minister, CHA Administrator, and staff members for their hard work. I would also like to express my gratitude to ICHCAP staff members who have worked so hard for the couple of months to prepare for the event. I would also like to express my gratitude to CEO Kim Woo-yeol of EBS and the staff members for live broadcasting. There are so many ICHCAP members who have worked day and night to prepare. Thank you so much. I would also like to thank the interpreters for yesterday and today's support. Thank you very much and have a good day. Thank you for those remarks, Director General Kim. Next, we would like to invite one of our other co-hosts, Kim Dong-ha, who is a director at CHF, another co-host of today's event, to provide us with his closing remarks as well.
존경하는 치싱 유네스코
Honorable
부사무총장님,
Chi Xing, Deputy Director General of UNESCO,
톤의 유네스코
Ernesto
문화사무총장,
Tone, Assistant Director General for Culture at UNESCO,
한국 대표부 대사님,
Pak Sang-mi, Ambassador for the Permanent Delegates of the Republic of Korea to UNESCO, Professor Janet Blake, and all of the experts on ICH from all across the world, distinguished guests. I'm very pleased that we've had the successful conclusion for this 20th anniversary celebration of the convention. My name is Kim Dong-ham, a director at the Korea Cultural Heritage Foundation. Living heritage is the source of creativity and our cultural diversity, and it is closely tied in with our lives. And it is now 20 years since we have first signed this convention safeguarding ICH. In today's celebration and international conference, we had the opportunity to look back at the significance of ICH across how it touches our societies and our cultures. We've also announced the Seoul vision for the future of ICH for sustainable development and sustainable peace. For the past 2 days, we've heard from all of you your valuable insights and your passionate discussions. I'd like to take this opportunity to express my sincerest gratitude to all the experts here, distinguished guests. ICH is living heritage. This means that it is not static and fixed in the past. It's living and breathing, and this is a heritage that must be passed on to the future generations. And to that end, we need the participation of UNESCO, governments, civil society, academia, and of course, very importantly, the communities who are at the center of practicing and preserving this ICH. Through today's Seoul vision, we will continue to work tirelessly towards the safeguarding of ICH for sustainable development. And we believe that this is going to be a great opportunity for us to pull together all of our efforts to respond to the various threats that are confronting us right now. The Korea Cultural Heritage Foundation, which is an advisory body, accredited advisory body for UNESCO, will work also to implement the convention and also to try to create a sustainable society where we can continue to respond to the challenges in front of us. This was a valuable opportunity for us to look back on the 20 years of safeguarding ICH. Thank you once again for your presence here, and we hope to see you again at a later date. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was remarks from Kim Dong-ha. Finally, I'd like to invite Deputy TGG Chi Xing of UNESCO for his concluding remarks.
Your Excellency Ambassador Pak Sang-mi, Permanent Delegate of the Republic of Korea to UNESCO. Excellencies, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure and an honor to close this 20th anniversary celebration for the Convention for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage. I would like to thank the Republic of Korea once again for giving us this opportunity. I would also like to thank all the experts, member states, non-governmental organizations, and local communities who have taken part in our discussions. You are the ones who keep our marvelous convention alive every day on the ground. And as we celebrate its 20th anniversary, you are best placed to help us sum up its past successes and think about its future. Throughout this conference, we have reiterated the two convictions that gave rise to the 2003 Convention. Firstly, that intangible heritage is not only one of the great riches of humanity, but also a source of hope for the future. We have recalled its core in uniting communities, promoting peace, driving employment and creativity, and empowering women and youth. We have emphasized the ways in which this knowledge, this know-how, these worldviews, especially those of indigenous communities, are invaluable in rebuilding humanity's relationship with nature. And for all these reasons, we have underlined, and this is the second conviction, that the international community has a responsibility to preserve and pass on this heritage. 20 years ago, the 2003 Convention enshrined these convictions. What was a bold affirmation at the time has now become an almost universally held belief. In recent years, we have measured how far we have come, how the Convention has fostered norms, mechanisms, and standards to preserve heritage at all levels. But while these successes are real, we also know, as you have pointed out, that we still have a long way to go. We must not be naive about the challenges that threaten our intangible heritage, from demographic change, mass urbanization, and economic pressures to climate disruption, the digital revolution, and health crises. These are all upheavals that can damage social fabric, weaken community cohesion, and destroy the places where intangible heritage is passed on. In the face of these challenges, we need to pool all our efforts and seize every opportunity to realize the potential of the Convention, to mobilize the power of education, which is central to transmission and which has much to learn from intangible heritage, to invest in the exceptional potential of digital technology so it is an ally rather than a threat, to incorporate intangible heritage into the green transition, and to place intangible heritage, a formidable tool for employment and development, at the heart of our societies. In short, to ensure that the heritage of yesterday is also a heritage of tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the path that you have taken at this conference with the Seoul vision. It will guide us to the 18th session of the Intergovernmental Committee in Botswana in December, which will mark the end of the Convention's 20th anniversary celebration. And our reflections will not stop here. It is up to us to keep the Convention alive, to take it into the future as we have done for the past 20 years. So, in closing, let me thank you all, and let me once again thank the Republic of Korea for giving us the opportunity to chart this path together. Thank you. 감사합니다.
Thank you very much, Deputy Director General Chi Shing of UNESCO, for your closing remarks. With that, we would like to conclude Unleashing the Power of Living Heritage for Sustainable Development and Peace, this 20th anniversary celebration of the Convention for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage Global Meeting and announcement of the Seoul Vision. The convention was adopted in 2003, and we are celebrating 20 years of its adoption. I do hope that this was a meaningful time for all of you today as well as yesterday, and we hope you have a safe return home.
Truly appreciate your presence. Please have a safe travel back home. And I have one quick note. notice from the organizers. For panelists and UNESCO delegations, please check out first and then bring your luggage to the lunch place. It's on the second floor that we had, the lunch place that we had yesterday. It's the second floor, the place that we had lunch yesterday. We will leave the hotel at 13 p.m. sharp. So thank you for your cooperation. And also, we will have an official photo session just now, so please come up to the podium for the panelists and UNESCO delegations. Please come up to the stage for a photo op. Thank you so much.